Welcome back to Property Play. Today I have Beth O'Donoghue here with me again. We're talking about all predictions we have on the real estate market coming up and what to do if you've decided to sell with a tenant.
Mm-hmm. You first.
Oh, no. Everyone already knows my predictions. My prediction is the condo market is not going to even start to see a glimmer of light until 2028, 2029.
Ooh, that late.
That's what I think.
Okay.
And the housing market's still going to do relatively well, but it depends on the price bracket because we're not building new things.
Do you think it depends on the area?
100%.
Yeah.
There are some areas that just don't trade well.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that people have to remember is if you're the nicest house on the street, you are going to be the last to be sold.
Yep.
People like to buy where they see that there's opportunity to improve as opposed to I've bought the nicest one and now I have to wait for my neighborhood to catch up with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is something to just keep in mind.
Well, and I think people think that Toronto is excluded from a lot of these rules, but it's not.
No.
It is not.
It can be very pocket driven. You can have
100%.
Toronto is built up with a bunch of different sub-markets.
100%.
We can have a listing in every pocket of the city that's the exact same price point, that looks the exact same, and it will sell differently depending on where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like dependent on school district. It could be dependent on the street, how close it is to a main intersection, if it's on a main road. If, for example, that area is known for XYZ, like it changes drastically.
Yeah.
How much money you can make.
100%.
Yeah.
The pockets here are very different. Very, very different.
We have a bunch of, we're not even talking about outside of Toronto right now.
Which is a whole hot mess.
But it's another ball game.
100%.
We're in a bunch of micro markets.
Yeah. Toronto is its own universe, but outside of it is a whole different story.
Mm-hmm. What are your predictions?
I agree. I think my sentiments are the same about the condo market. I hope for a recovery, though, a little bit sooner. I'm thinking 2027, but maybe late 2027. I do think that the recovery is going to come, and I think it's going to be fast. I don't think it'll be a slow climb. I think it'll be like overnight, what happened? People are going to be like, oh my God. And everyone's going to be calling, being like, I wish I bought 2 years ago.
I do agree with you on that sentiment. Like, I do think it will happen overnight. That there'll just be a switch that got flipped, and all of a sudden everyone's like, wait, we should have bought. Because there was a moment in time in the market not too far ago that everything was like, there was no offer night, no offer date, no nothing. And then all of a sudden, like within 2 weeks, everything exploded.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then it died again.
Yes.
So I do think that we have the capability of switching a light switch and then all of a sudden everything changes. But the reason why I think it's that far out is because I'm timing it along with new development construction and what it's completed and what is getting completed. Yeah. So 2027 makes perfect sense because we're not going to have inventory for the amount of people that are there.
I think by 2028, 2029, I think will be madness.
We're back to 2021.
I honestly think it's going to be worse because at least 2021, we were still adding inventory. Pre-construction was going mad. I think the difference now is going to be, it's going to be a lot harder for developers to come back to the market. I think a lot of developers will go away from the market and they're going to focus on a lot of sub-markets. So I think like Cambridge, Niagara, all of those markets will start to pick up before downtown starts again. And the problem is once downtown starts, you know how long things take.
Okay, but now we're not talking about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Okay. Developers aren't building. That's one factor.
Yeah.
Elections just happened. That's another factor.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about a trade war that's happening between Canada and the US.
Sure.
And we have to build buildings. And to build buildings, we need product.
Yeah.
So to think that this is not going to have an effect.
Yeah.
An effect.
Yeah. Well, hopefully our new prime minister is going to make a good deal.
What's going on with all the construction workers? Where are they going to go for the next couple of years if we're not building?
Well,
are we going to have people to build inventory at that time?
From my insider info, because I have a lot of friends in the trades, what they're doing is a lot of government work.
Okay.
So the government is, and this is what's going to happen, especially if we're going through trade wars, the government's going to have to spend in order to stimulate our economy. So they are spending. They already have a lot of stuff planned, a lot of infrastructure, hospitals, all that kind of stuff is coming. So I think that's what's going to keep the trades busy. What I think is a bigger problem is that so many trades are retiring. There are so many that are leaving the industry. Never mind that there's not enough coming in. Even if there was, let's say ideally, even half the people that are leaving are coming in, you can't say that someone brand new into a trade is anywhere close to someone who has 30 years experience. There's obviously a big difference, like a big capability gap. So I think that'll be the big problem. That'll be the big problem. People don't realize in Toronto how spoiled we are. We have so many good trades and a lot of skilled work here. So we'll see what happens if that dries up. That'll be another thing that's just going to drive prices up.
It's also a good time if you are thinking about doing any work. They're looking for jobs right now.
Of course.
Like trades are hungrier than usual.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the people that wouldn't answer your calls or were giving you astronomical quotes.
Yeah.
Because they didn't need your work are now open to negotiation.
Yeah. I'm finding people who want to renovate, they're getting really good prices. So if you're buying a fixer-upper right now, you're getting some good deals on your renos. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you think the federal government's going to put any pressure now that the government has changed for that to help stimulate? They say they want to get housing built. That's been the biggest complaint. And for those watching, taxes and development charges make up over 30% of the price of new construction. So if we want to make a big difference in affordability, which is apparently very important to young people, that would be the most obvious marker to change. I think even since like me and you have been in the industry,
it's gone up
over 1,000%. Because you know I'm a nerd for these numbers.
I know, but what other areas are doing is they're giving their developers more breaks so they can actually start construction.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen that in Toronto.
No.
And my fear is if a developer can't build, which we all know this, how are we going to get new inventory? How are things going to be affordable? And the people in politics that get elected or that run and the platforms that they're running on, for the most part, are geared towards getting votes.
Of course. And any big decisions means that you're dividing votes. So I feel like that's what polarizes politicians to making big decisions.
Yeah. And you have to, when it comes to real estate, it's very easy to make blanket statements that we're going to make sure it's more affordable.
Yeah.
Like how many times do we hear that in a campaign? It's going to be more affordable.
Yeah. What's affordable?
What's affordable and how do we make it affordable?
And the problem
is... How do we make it affordable is my question.
And even if we were to make condos affordable, is that what people want? That's another problem. But I don't know. Where's the middle ground here? I think the problem if we add a slowing housing market, which takes away land transfer tax income for the city, now we're asking them to take away development charges, which takes away more income from the city. Where do they make that up? And, is that going to be a disincentive for them to do that?
I think that this is how we get canceled, and I'm not allowed to say what I actually think on the internet. I'm not allowed to say it.
TikTok's going to get real mad.
Yeah. TikTok is going to get mad. If developers cannot build, we have no inventory. If no inventory comes, then we have no product. If no product comes, everyone pays more money for what we have.
100%.
So what people don't realize is what our politicians choose to do with development charges, with the landlord tenant board, with everything that has to do with real estate, even if it looks like this is helping us, does it help or hurt? Yeah. Because how much inventory on the market right now is actually individually like an individual person owns, not a corporation, and they're leasing it out to tenants.
Of course.
How many people need to rent in the city of Toronto? And it's not about, they can't afford to buy because it's so unaffordable. It's some people don't have the luxury to be able to get into the market. Some people choose to be renters.
Yeah, some people just don't want to.
And some people are young and they're saving.
Yeah.
So like there is a portion of the market that needs to be renters.
And that always will be.
And without us buying inventory that will turn into rental product, then there's no rental inventory.
Yeah, there's nowhere for people to live.
Then there is nothing affordable.
Yep.
And the only reason why there is now affordable options in the market is because investors bought investor units, which are the small units, and now they're choosing to sell them. Mm-hmm. So if you want to take advantage of the market, take advantage of this market and get in to these investor style units that were smaller, but rent well and buy a unit that you can live in.
Well, and it's about climbing the ladder. I think a lot of people, especially, you know, our parents' generation and even the generation before that, were used to just going in and buying the forever home. Mm-hmm. Now it's more about get into your condo, upsize to that townhouse, then maybe do a semi, and then you can get into your detached.
And if you're at all paying attention to our predictions, where we see the market is heading in the next couple of years, is you get in and you wait. And then when the market explodes, because it will inevitably happen, that's when you make a move. Yeah. That's when you refinance the property and buy another. That's when you sell and buy another. Like, that's when you decide to make changes. But if you don't get into the first one, it will be harder for you to get to the others.
100%. Right now, it's a very unique opportunity. Price point and interest rates are pretty fair right now.
I know we were going to talk about selling with tenants, but I want to talk about something else with you.
Yep.
Can we talk about your real estate portfolio and kind of how
I
know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay, because I'll turn the spotlight back on you.
No, but like,
no, it's good to talk about.
Property Play. Let's play real life Monopoly.
Yeah.
How did you get into real estate, and like, how did you trade up?
Yeah. So I started when I was young. Me and Elena both went to university. So real estate was not the first option. However, it was always the passion behind the scenes. And I think we always saw ourselves being involved in real estate regardless of where we ended up. So I was already dabbling a little bit. I was licensed by the time I started college. I was fully licensed by the time I finished university. I had already been dealing in real estate. And then once I finished university and got out, I decided to do real estate full time. I bought my first condo 6 months after I started. I bought pre-construction. I bought in a building in an area that I really believed in, that I knew would do well. At the time, I paid $400,000 for a 1+10 in a very good area downtown. And I remember everybody telling me that I was crazy and me thinking, am I crazy myself? But knowing that long term that I was going to do well, just worried that, am I going to be able to do this all by myself?
That's the definition of, if you want to make it happen, you will make it happen. She was the queen of side hustles.
Yeah.
Like, every single side 100%. Job that you could have done to
whatever
be like,
I could do.
Like, I need to own something. I need to get into the market. How many jobs can I work? How can I pay for this? Like, how do I make it happen?
I was 23 when I signed that contract. Yeah. So young. Anyways. And then from there, it just multiplied. I was able to do a lot of pre-con at the time, because in my mind, I was like, well, if I sign the contract and I make these commitments, then I'll just figure out a way to pay for it.
We have a very similar first property story.
Yeah. So the second one was on the East End. It was a 1-bed and I paid $305 for it. And then it just went on from there. And then from there, I was able to pull from the first one to buy my upsize from there. And we just kept going. So the first property really set the tone for what I was able to do with my portfolio. I now, between me and my family, we own 8 properties. So, I've been able to provide a financial security for my family, not just my husband and my kids, my mom and my sister. So I think that that's bigger picture what I was really looking to do. So real estate really provided that opportunity for me and my family.
Yeah, gaining financial freedom.
Yeah. And I think, you know what, me and you both did this when we were super young, but what we did and what you should talk about is we made a lot of sacrifices when we were young. A lot of sacrifices. Like, Elena could have been buying those Gucci bags a long time ago, and she decided to stay at home and save her money.
Yeah, I lived at home for ever. I lived at home forever. I bought real estate and lived at home.
Even when she bought her first house, I was like, are you actually going to move in? And she was like, I don't think so.
We were sitting on the porch. We were talking about renovations, and Beth's like, are you going to move into here? And I'm like, if I do, then how do I save money?
You're like, I don't think I'm going to live here.
Plot twist, I ended up moving there.
Yeah, plot twist. She moved out.
But it was a way of saving money. And I think, especially my early on in my career, I think what we went through and how we managed to get in shaped kind of what we do with our clients too. Like 100%. I have no problem telling people to go back and live at home.
Yep.
If they have the ability. Sometimes you don't have that. I have
100%.
no problem telling them, like, it would be fantastic for you to rent a place for $3,000.
For
but
sure.
have we looked at a place for like $2,000? Have we looked at a place for $21,000? Could you manage to save some more money and then get into the market?
Well, I think being able to talk from experience gives your clients a lot of confidence in your abilities, because you're like, I've done this. I not only just for my clients, but I've done this myself. This is what I've done. And you can do it too.
And we survived. And even though we did sacrifices, like, we're still okay.
We're
like,
living.
We're okay.
We're living. Well, and I think another big thing that people don't talk about is, like, it was a lot of work. This girl works so hard. Can I tell everyone listening? She still works so hard. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes. It's not easy.
But again, it's the sacrifice. Like, people, I think, look at it now and they're like, oh my God, like, it was so easy, or oh my God, like, we're not like her, so it's not possible, or blah, blah, blah. The amount of sacrifices, and both of us did this, like our evenings, our weekends, our holidays,
events, family things,
like
vacations we wanted to go on,
or vacations
things we wanted to buy,
or trips and vacations that we did go on and then we actually did not go on them.
No, you just worked.
Because we worked the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Like, it is a job that can be very profitable and very amazing, and you have to love it.
For sure.
But there are sacrifices.
It's a lifestyle. It becomes a part of your lifestyle. I can't tell you how many times, and I know that you've experienced it too, where you're out and you're like, sorry, I have to take this call, or sorry, I have to write this offer. And people would be like, really? And you're like, yeah.
Okay, do you know what happened? So Dan and I went on a trip, and like fully in the middle of the night, because we were in Europe.
Yeah.
And I worked the whole time I was there.
I know.
So he went for a work trip and I joined him for like a few days after. But I had clients that wanted to submit offers. And yes, I could have put any one of our agents on it and they would have done a phenomenal job, but they still wanted to hear from me. And, like,
of course,
I'm a people pleaser that won't say no and put boundaries. So I take the calls.
Yeah.
So I took the calls. I opened up my laptop. I did the deal at one point, and I think it was like 2 a.m. because offers usually run late.
Yep.
2 a.m. in Europe. It was like, I don't remember what time it was here, but it was regular, like, it was a regular working time.
Office. Yeah.
Dan just opens his eyes and goes, there's no amount of money worth this. And that's all he said.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's not the money. It's,
No, but it's, I wanted to help my client.
That's the thing.
And you feel so bad not doing it. So
Of
you're just
course.
like, I have to help them.
Of course.
But a good friend of mine, and you haven't met her yet, but you will eventually, Andra Arnold, says something really great to me once. And she was like, when we're working together, you're taking time away from me and my family. So you better fill my cup too.
Yeah.
There better be something like, I want to work with you. You need to want to work with me too.
Right.
If I'm going to spend time away from my loved ones to be with you, like, understand that I'm taking time away from my loved ones. Maybe I'm missing soccer games. Maybe I'm missing dance recitals. Maybe I'm on my laptop instead of on vacation.
Right.
Maybe I'm on FaceTime in the Louvre. Yes, it's happened to me before.
Yes.
For work. But just understand that that's what's happening on my end too.
Yep.
Like, I'm sacrificing a lot to be able to help you.
Now
Yes, we do get paid for it.
Yes.
But it's not a normal job. We don't work a 9 to 5. We work 24/7.
And the expectations for us to be available for people when they want to talk to you I don't think it's the same in most industries.
Honestly, have a European mom and it will train you for real estate.
Yeah.
If you don't answer the phone, when the phone rings, they think you're dead in a ditch. So you'll be trained. You'll be fine. You'll get used to it. If your phone rings, just answer your phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now that I have kids, that is a lot realer for me. I think before then, I didn't have the same perspective about my time. I was very generous with my time for other people. And now, what you said rings a lot truer.
But I also think before kids, your one priority was, how do I build a life that's good for me and my family? How do I make sure that we're all financially
set myself up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point where we sacrificed a lot. And it was more so, how much can we sacrifice when we don't have other responsibilities?
100%.
Before we do have those responsibilities.
Which I want to tell all of you is what you need to do. Sacrifice before your time is monopolized.
Yeah. And again, like people are like, oh my God, you're 20s. You could have spent doing whatever you wanted to do. And you're right. But
Now you've set yourself up for the rest of your life. And now you have more options, you know, because the time is the real freedom.
Yeah.
Not just money, but money buys the time.
I like how you talked about luxury goods too. And you're like, she was not buying this. I was not buying that.
You were not.
No.
I know you were not.
But I was telling people the math on if you bought them versus if you bought a property.
I know.
Do you not remember this?
I know.
I'd be like,
You had one client who you specifically had to sit down, and I remember
oh my God,
this.
they just bought with me again now.
Of course.
No, this is the exact same client. So I had to sit her down, her and her husband was like, I love you so much after this convo. I'm like, the pair of shoes that you want that are $1,500, that's your legal bill.
Yes.
And she went, what? And I go, and that purse that you want, that's the first payment in pre-con. And she goes, what? I'm like, so every time you look at those luxury stuff, say 4 of them and I buy X.
Yep.
Like I could buy an actual property. How many shoes before I pay for my legal bills? How many purses before I actually could have bought a property?
Yeah.
And your mentality shifts. Like, 100%. Can we somehow, and this is going to be a David question behind the camera, like clip the Sex and the City clip where she's like, you spent $40,000 on shoes and you have no place to live. Like, we need that clip. Mm-hmm. Because if you do add up all these things that really don't matter and you could buy later on in life,
100%.
What could you potentially buy?
Yep. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I know I'm seeing it, are getting stuck now in their later 30s or early 40s, and they don't have anything. They don't own anything. And the problem is if you wait that long, like, yeah, we did it when we were young. Yes, it was hard. But if you wait, now you're 40 and you're buying your first property, which is now apparently the common age for first-time buyers, you are 65 when you pay off your mortgage. How do you stop working? You can't.
And also it's about using your assets to pay for your liabilities.
Yeah.
Like when you actually get into the market, when you actually own real estate and you actually have tenants paying you income, or when you have properties that are paid off and you're passively making money, use that money to buy the nice stuff.
Well, and I think people get caught up with real estate, individual properties being an investment vehicle that I have to make X return, or I can invest in stocks, or I can invest in this. The thing with real estate is it's a savings account, essentially, for a lot of people. And a lot of people aren't very good at saving. So it forces you to save money. It forces you to pay these mortgage payments, and also gives you a place to live, which people, I feel like, they get so caught up in like, do you think that this is a good investment? Where it's like, you need somewhere to live. You have to live your life under a roof.
Also, don't think it's this glamorous. Like me and Beth talk about getting our first places and like the panic that actually went into it.
Yes.
The stress that went into it.
Yes.
The crying that went into it.
Lord.
Like, can I actually afford to do this? Like the stuff that you're feeling when you purchase it, we all felt it.
Yeah, we feel the same ways. And every time, by the way, it's not like, it gets a little easier, but we still feel every time like, is this the right thing? Did I do the right thing this time?
I'm trying to think. I'm like, yeah. Every time. You're just like,
we feel the same way.
Move? And then you think about whether or not it was a right move, like 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line, and you're like, you know what? It was the right move. Like, we're okay.
Yeah,
but in the moment,
okay.
we're like, could we afford to do that? How are we going to figure this out? What happens if we can't afford this? What happens if we can't pay this? You freak out.
I think the difference with us is that maybe we have a different, like a wider perspective. I think people who don't do this as often as we do are like super focused in on the small things at the time, where we can zoom out and be like, well, this isn't our forever home. And then eventually it's going to do this. And eventually I'm going to do this. And I'm in it for the long term. And, you know,
I think we only had that mindset though, because we were in real estate.
That's what I mean.
And I think if we were not in the field, this would have been a lot scarier.
Yeah.
But like when you bought your first property, I know there was panic. When I bought my first, there was panic. Like, we talked about it.
Yeah.
It was traumatic.
We still talk about it.
we trauma bonded over it.
Yeah.
No, but we bought a completely different product than what our clients are for the most part buying.
Yep.
We also bought new development, which comes with its own challenges. But I also think that you have no business selling something if you have not bought it yourself.
100%.
Because you have the ability to sit there with your clients and be like, I went through this.
Yeah.
This is normal. It's okay. Yes, the developer does do this.
Yes.
Or no, this is what happens. Like, you have a different perspective. Like, it just looks different.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay, well, that's all for Property Play today.
We didn't even talk about selling with tenants. Sorry,
no,
guys.
we didn't. But our time is up. We'll bring Beth back to talk about that later on. If you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.